Hello, teachers. My name is Laura Nearing, and I'm the administrative assistant here at the Fresno Institute. I am going to be giving a training on a few things that are going to help you out at the end of the term here. I'm going to, Ricky, you can cut this whole first part out. All right, here we go. Hello, teachers. We're going to be doing a virtual training this week, and I'm going to be giving you some information on getting your classes taken care of near the end of the term. And there's going to be two parts to this. The first part, ooh, okay, I lied. Start from there. Oh my gosh. Now you can start. Hello, teachers. This is our virtual training, and I'm going to be giving you some information that's going to help you as you're getting towards the end of the term. There are going to be two parts to this. The first part, please watch now. The second part, watch now, but then refer back to it at the end of this term. So the first thing is I wanted to remind you that should be no WISE specialists in your classes. Everyone needs to know how to access and use WISE. Teachers get released or they move, and then they're the ones who've been doing all the stuff in WISE, and the remaining teacher has no idea what to do. So there should be no WISE specialists. Everyone should be taking their turn at taking attendance, working through the credit screens, all of that kind of stuff. So please make sure there are no WISE specialists in your classes. A quick registration reminder, please check your class summary screen. If any of your students still have the parent agreement icon, that little piece of paper that looks like there's a pencil in it, if they have that near their name, at the end of the term, WISE removes the student from the class. So the parents need to sign that parent agreement. This is usually when students start seminary, like when they're freshmen. But if someone is coming in, they're a convert or something, they've come in at a later age, whatever the first time is that they show up in seminary, that's when their parents need to sign the parent agreement. If you've tried all semester long and you've been unsuccessful in your attempts to get a parent to sign the parent agreement, please let me know right away. There are workarounds for it, and I can make adjustments in those cases. But it's better if the parents sign it. But if for some reason you just can't get them to do it, and I understand when I was teaching, I had the same issue, make sure I know, and I can help you with that. Okay, attendance. As of this week, 1/3 of seminary students have no idea what their actual attendance percentage is because their teacher has incomplete or no attendance marked. So I have several suggestions to taking attendance easier, and that it only takes one step. So the first is a shortcut widget. So you have on your screen and your phone all the different, apps and things like that. If you go to Wise, and for Androids, you're going to click on the three dots in the upper right-hand corner. And on an iPhone, you're going to click on the share button at the bottom of the screen. And then in both cases, you're going to have a choice to add to home screen. And when you do that, it creates a widget for you, and you can put that on your home screen. And so every time you want to get on Wise, you just click on that shortcut widget, and it'll take you to your class. And Wise knows that you're on a mobile device, and so it configures it a little bit differently so that it looks right on your phone. And you can take attendance there, you can access reading and those kind of things. A lot of the other functionality of Wise you'll need to do from your desktop, but attendance, a breeze when you do that. The other suggestion is put your tablet or a laptop by the door, and when the students come in, you have the screen up and they can mark their own attendance. And that sometimes makes it a lot easier. They can, if they know if you take tardies or whatever, they can put a tardy if they're tardy, or they can put themselves, make sure that they mark themselves present. And then at the end of the class, you just change the attendance marker to absent and click mark all unmarked, and it does all the rest of it, and your attendance is done. Another suggestion is to have class roles. You may have a class president, or you may have a, devotional leader or something like that, but assign a student to mark the attendance for the class, and they can have access to that same like tablet or laptop that you would use to have all the students sign in individually, and they can just do it themselves. So those are a couple of suggestions that it only takes one step rather than marking attendance on a piece of paper and then going back later and having to do it in Wise, and that's 2 steps and it takes a lot longer. So some suggestions for you. Okay, and as a reminder, this is how you're going to take attendance. So for each day of the term, you're going to mark attendance for your class. Please, if you can, daily, at the very least weekly, choose the attendance marker. In most cases, it's going to be your present tab. You can go through and just click on each of your individual students. And once you've marked all those that are here or there, present, you can click on that marker, change it to absent, and then click mark all unmarked. Be sure to click save, okay? Now, the way to check to see if you've completed your attendance is to click on the date marker at the top of your class list. If you have not completed any of the attendance for your class on a particular day, the field will have that kind of ghosted circle there. If you've completed all the attendance for the day, it's going to be green check mark. You're good to go. If you've completed some, but not all of your attendance for your class on that day, a lot of times people will mark everybody there, but then they forget to go back and do the, absent, mark all unmarked. And so it's only partial attendance. And there you'll see a half orange, half white circle that it'll appear in the date column. Please review your class attendance frequently to make sure that your attendance is complete, because the farther you go out, the less likely you are to remember what the attendance was on a particular day or something like that. All right. Oh, yes, be sure to click save. All right, reading. The number one reason that students do not get credit for a term is because they did not complete or record their reading. It's usually they forget to record it, or they had trouble getting into MySeminary, and so then they just forgot or whatever. But that's the number one reason that students don't get credit for a term. And when we're closing out classes at the end of the year, I don't know if they've read it or not. And so I got to leave it the way it is. So please make sure the students are recording their reading. The students go onto the MySeminary app, and it gives them, a place to mark their reading for the 5 scripture blocks that they're required to read for the credit this term. Students should also be encouraged to make daily scripture goals, but for credit, they need to finish those 5 readings. Please, please encourage your students frequently to complete and mark their reading. Again, the out of sight, out of mind, right? And they don't remember to do it. So please remind them frequently. If a student falls below 75% of the reading, then a little red triangle will appear next to their name. Now, their parents can mark their reading if they log into MySeminary. If you want to on Wise, you could go in and like on your phone, you can have click on one of the students' names and say, here, mark your reading. And then you click on the next student's name here for mark your reading. And I would take one day a week and just spend 5 minutes and have everybody click, mark their reading. And that way they were keeping up to date. So that's one way. Also, there's a QR code for kids to get onto MySeminary. That was in the Seminary Teacher Conference digital packet from this last August. So if you need it again, or if you can access it that way, great. If you need it again, just let me know. I will email that to you. All right, please make sure they're doing their reading. Thank you. All right, assessments. Just a reminder about assessments. They need to that's also one of the things that students need for credit. So in the pacing guide, there are assess your learning lessons all throughout the term. Please don't skip those. Make sure that you're doing those classes. If any of your students are there for even one of them, they get credit. Even if they didn't say anything, even if they were just in the room, they get credit for having completed the assessment. So as soon as you do that first assess your reading or learning, sorry, you can go to the credit screen and start clicking yes on all of the students who were there that day. On the next one, if there were extra students, you can go in and click yes for all of those students. If we get to the end of the term and someone has not been there, there are take-home ones that they can take home. It's open book, it's open family. They can ask questions, whatever they need to do so that they get credit for that. When you first get on the credit screen, next to the word credit, you're going to see a little side arrow. You're going to need to click on that for it to expand, and then you can see the reading attendance and assessment. All right, so part 2, watch now so that you're familiar with the process, and then refer back to this part of the video at the end of the term when you're getting ready to close out your classes. So closing your classes for fall 2025, the final day to close your class is Monday, December 22nd. Okay, classes end on the 19th. You have the weekend. Please make sure that you get your classes closed out, and then we can close out the term. So on the credit tab, again, you're going to click on the little side arrow to expand it, and you're going to see attendance. If there's anything in red, that means they're below 75%. So the sooner you look at this and you see someone who is at 74%, like here, you can say, hey, you need to make up one more lesson to get credit, and then they can just do that one really quickly rather than it just kind of hanging out for the rest of the time that they're in seminary. I already talked to you about recording the assessment. Another way to tell if you have completed all the days of your attendance or not is in this part where, like it says 9 to 46, 37 to 46, those numbers should be the same if you've done all of your attendance. It should say 46 of 46 or whatever days we have in the term. And so if that first number is lower than the end number, then you missed a day, and you can go back and look and see which one that you missed. Okay, next to credit, there is, oh, sorry, I already told you about the assessment. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so next to it, it says attendance. There's also a little side arrow there to click, and it expands it. If students have makeup work to do, and you can see that in the DTMU, which is days to make up, you can see here some of the students have 0, one has 16, 16, 26, 26. They have a lot of work that they need to make up. Where it says edit under MUW, makeup work, please click there and you'll get a dialog box that you can add information about that student's makeup work. They have 16 lessons to make up, or whatever it is. Especially if the student is missing reading, please make a note of the percentage of how much they have completed, because once the term ends, the transcript changes it to yes or no. And so if they've read 3 of the scripture blocks, but they didn't finish those last 2, it'll say no. And as far as anybody else knows, they have to read the whole thing. So put in there, they completed 3 of the scripture blocks, or they completed, what would that be? 45% or whatever. No, 60%, whatever percentage it is. Put the percentage there that they need to finish reading in order to, or how much they've completed, whatever you want to do, so that they know, oh, I only need to read this much more rather than have to read the whole thing. And then you click on OK, and you can go on to the next student. Okay, once you have completed all of that part, all the assessments are notated, all of the attendance, all of the reading, then you're going to go up to the top right-hand corner of your screen and click on Lock Class. Now, if there's any issues, an unregistered student, a student that has no attendance for the whole term, a little dialog box will pop up and say, hey, this is why you weren't able to lock out your class. And if you have any questions or you need help with that, just let me know and I can help you with that. You can, like I said, especially with the registration, let me know and we'll talk about it and I can get that taken care of. Make sure that you've saved everything, okay? Your reading, your attendance, your assessment, especially if you're going in and doing it a little bit at a time, because if you don't save it, you're going to go back the next time and say, I entered all of the assessments. Why aren't they here? Well, you didn't click save. So make sure you click save and then click on lock class. Please do not wait, excuse me, for makeup work before locking out your class, okay? You'll get a student that's like, oh, I'll get it in this afternoon, right? And 9.99999% times out of 10, they don't turn it in by the time that they say they're going to anyway. So once the class is locked and I close out the term, we can easily add any makeup work to their transcript. So please don't wait. Don't tell them, oh, you can make it up after the term or whatever, or get it in by this time. Just close out your class. We'll work out, figuring out their makeup work after the term is completed. Now, heads up, this will especially be the case at the end of the spring term when we're preparing for seminary recognition. And I need to print out certificates for 7 stakes in time for stake ceremonies. They have to have that in by the end of the term because we can't wait for makeup work. So make sure that they understand and know that that's going to be the case and that they'll need to get that makeup work done before the end of the term. This term, we have some wiggle room, so we can close out the classes and then go ahead and add it later. But if they want to graduate, and especially if they're seniors, then you want to make sure that they've gotten that makeup work in plenty of time. All right, reimbursements. You have reimbursements available to you for our seminary budget for classroom supplies, which is items that stay in the classroom, like posters, cubbies, office supplies, that kind of thing, is $100 per school year per class. What that means is if you have 2 teachers, it's not $100 each, it's $100 per class, and that's for the entire school year, not per term. Student activities, items that leave the classroom in the students' hands or stomachs, like treats, crafts, handouts, any of that kind of thing. It's $5 per active student per class per year. So if you have 20 kids enrolled in your class, but only 15 of them show up and you have 5 that you've never seen in class, then you're doing that $5 by the 15 students that are there. Again, that's per class per year. Please, 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 if you have not filled out a payee setup form, get it to me as soon as possible. The payee setup form was in the digital conference packet from August. I send it out to all the new teachers. I will be sending out an email with reimbursement forms and payee setup forms as we go throughout the term. If you haven't gotten one yet and you want it now, please send me an email. Let me know. I will get that to you as soon as possible. It's taking extra time for them to process the payee setup forms. So if you want to receive your reimbursement in a timely manner, then that payee setup form has got to be processed as soon as possible. So please get it to me and keep your receipts, keep track of your mileage. I will need original receipts. You can send in scans or photos of the receipts to get the process of a reimbursement going, but I will need the physical original receipts at one point. So I want to give you an idea of what it looks like, a reimbursement form. This is what you're going to see. This is like the whole page. I'll go into all the little parts individually. Okay. At the top, you're going to fill out your name, your stake, your ward, your phone number, your email address, your physical address. And that's, so that they can make sure that it's the right person, because there are plenty of people with the same names in the church. So this is the way that they tell the difference between the different ones. For recurring travel, like when you're going back and forth to your seminary class, the top half is where you're going to put that in. So you're going to do your starting point, which is your home, and then the destination address, which is the chapel or the, whatever building that you're doing your school, what have you, where you're doing your class. You're going to put the round trip mileage in, so total there and back. And then you're going to put the month and just click off all of the days that you made that trip during that month. January, this many days, February, this many days, that kind of thing. Now, I apologize. Well, I shouldn't apologize because it wasn't my fault, but for whatever reason, they only put 3 boxes on here. So for, this term, you have August, September, October, and then you need November and December. So you will need to fill out 2. I'm sorry you have to do that, but for whatever reason, they haven't put back 5 places so that you don't have to do it twice. But please fill in, go ahead and fill out 2 for all 5 months. The next part is varied travel. And varied travel is like when you drive to the Institute for a training, like the conference or something like that, or you drive to the grocery store to get some treats for your class, or, a restaurant or whatever store to get some food for a seminary breakfast or something. It also includes when you go and visit students. So here you would put in that varied travel. And what you need to do is put in your starting point, which would be your home, right? And then the destination address, which is the address of the store or the institute or something like that. The date, how many miles it took you to get from your home to the place that you're going to. And then you put the purpose was, purchasing food or, or some attending a training, whatever it is. Then on the next line, you're going to put the return trip. So you're going to start at the starting point is the restaurant or the store or the institute or whatever. And then your destination address is your home address. And you would just put the purpose is returning home, right? So for each of those varied travel, you need to do one that goes from your place to the next place, and then that place back to your home. Now, if you go to like 4 students' addresses, then you would do your home, the first address, the second address, third address. You know what I mean? So you can just keep doing that, but they require, and this is, tax purposes and all that kind of stuff. They require that it's listed each leg of the journey. So you're not going to say, I left my home, drove to 4 people's houses, and it took me 23 miles, and now I'm back home. They need to know exactly, that trip. So that's where you put in varied travel. If you're filling out 2 anyway and you have more, you can put the other, those on the other one. If you're doing it right, and you should make sure that right here, the reimbursement rate is 0.14. It should come up automatically when I send you the form, but if it doesn't, put 0.14 in here, and the form will automatically start calculating all of the totals, right? All right, so if you have receipts to just 2 places, let's say 1 or 2 places, then you can, here under other expenses, put the merchant name, Walmart or, Office Depot or something like that. The purpose and description of the purchase, pens for the classroom, or, treats for, seminary breakfast or whatever. Don't worry about the account code. That's my spot. And then you would put the amount of the receipt. Okay. If you have more than 2 receipts, normally, and because I had filled this out, it wasn't there. Normally on the right-hand side, there's a purple plus sign. And if you click on that purple plus sign, you get this screen. And so you can put all of the different places that you went and all the different receipts there. If you come to this screen and you put one under one, just write on the receipt number one, line one, next receipt, line two, that way it's really easy to match them. Purpose and description, I already explained that. And then there's two columns you can keep track of: classroom and supplies and student activities. And you can just put them in the different uh, columns there, because the account total at the bottom, if you're doing classroom and you're like, oh, I'm at 102, I need to stop putting in receipts for the classroom, right? Or students, you have 5 students for $5 a piece, you're getting down to the bottom and it's like 24.95 or something, like, oh, okay, I got to stop there, kind of thing. Don't worry, you don't have to keep receipts to an exact amount, because what I'll do is just do the, subtraction basically to make it an even 100 if you go over. So don't worry about that. I also keep a spreadsheet of the expenditures that you have turned in. You do not have to wait to the end of the term to turn in a reimbursement request. If you spend a lot on a seminary breakfast and you want to get that back soon, go ahead and turn it in now. You don't have to wait till the end of the term. Most teachers wait till the end of the term just because they add it in their mileage and everything all together, but you don't have to. But I need those payee setup forms as soon as possible. If you've never received a reimbursement before, if you've changed banks or you've moved, you will need to fill out a new form. Okay. All right. Original receipts need to get back to me ASAP. You can mail them to the Institute. You can come by the Institute and drop them off, or if we're not here, drop them through the mail slot at the front of the building, bring them to a training, whatever. But as soon as possible, get those back to me. And as usual, please ask for help earlier than later. Don't wait until the last day of the term to say, I don't understand any of this. Give me a call, let me know. My office hours are usually between 8 and 3 p.m., Monday through Friday. That's subject to a little bit of maneuvering here and there. Give me a call if you want to make sure that I'm here. And then I have included my email address and my phone number. Unfortunately, my phone number right now does not accept texts. There we go. So please email me. And as soon as the texting thing gets worked out with our provider, then I'll be happy to text. But right now we can't do that. So please email or call me and we'll get whatever you need worked out. So thank you very much and have a great rest of your term.
All right, welcome teachers to virtual training. I know that in the next month or so, we're going to get together in person by stake, so we can talk about maybe some state specific things and items of business and a little bit of training. But today, I kind of wanted to address something that's more general for everybody. Ever since last month, with the tragedy that took place in Michigan, there's been some interesting conversations being had among leaders and some teachers and, frankly, parents and students. Um, Personally, I've been reached out to by several different people, and the responses to that tragedy, they're varied. From people who are nervous, afraid. There have been those that were angry because they felt like security protocols should be tightened and should be enhanced. And, you know, there's an understanding that church buildings are kind of soft targets for certain situations like this that take place. In response to that, the church provided a memo to priesthood leaders talking about building security and so on and so forth. And your state presidencies and your bishops will have their own guidance in how they would like to approach um, emergency scenarios like what we saw. Okay. What I wanted to do is I wanted to just take a little bit of time and do a little bit of training on procedure in emergencies. This will be helpful to you. You guys in the morning, you're there, and it's you, if something happens during early morning seminary, you teachers lead out. Yes, some of your buildings you do have a building. I don't know what you call those people that you have there, building security or the hall monitor, or however you want to see. You do have them to rely on, but often it's you teachers who kind of dictate the response, right? So in order to give you some of the information, I'm gonna create in this video, in the description of the video, I'm gonna include a link to the following emergency response guide. um, we have a conversation, or usually I send out a form once a year to just kind of give you an opportunity to review some of these topics. But I'd like to take, because of the nature of what happened last month, I thought I'd just maybe take a little bit more time and go through some of these a little bit more finely, and give you a chance to hear some of my explanations, but then provide the emergency response guide. So if you want to refer to it later, okay? So just so we're aware, okay? Uh, in the beginning of this, building security guidelines, you're going to see a common theme in this response guide. Law enforcement is your first resource. There were incidents in other buildings where somebody wandered into the building, and it was in a threatening situation. And um, this was not in our area, but it was further north. But one of the building security, hall monitors, um, actually went and kind of took care of the situation that was a little bit of a scary situation. That's actually against policy. Yeah. If somebody were to wander in the building and you feel threatened, you go ahead and protect the youth, and you keep them separated, and then you call the police. It's only in dire situations would there be a need for one of our stake members to actually confront. There's obviously things that you can do to communicate and whatnot. But if it goes beyond that, you separate and you call the police. Okay. Avoid being alone in the building. Most of us have team teachers, or at least multiple classes going on at the same time. But if you ever feel like you are alone in your building, and that makes you nervous, it should. Um, Reach out to me, reach out to your stake supervisor, reach out to the bishop or stake presidency, so that should not be. Okay. Situational awareness is key. And I know you probably feel this, especially when we get closer to winter time and you're showing up to the church building, and it's dark, and maybe you're just paying attention a little bit more. But just in case you're not, um, be able to communicate with the other teachers, try to coordinate a little bit better, being at the building at the same time, being able to recognize if there's vehicles, or if there's objects, or if there are people in the parking lot. Be aware of all that. And if ever you have that feeling like you're feeling a little bit nervous, reach out to your co-teachers. If you know if you have a building, somebody there that's supposed to kind of be there in the halls, if you know who they are, reach out to them. If you want to reach out to me, I am more than happy to receive a phone call at 6 in the morning from one of you teachers saying, something's going on in the parking lot and I'm a little nervous. I am more than happy to come and help facilitate whatever needs to happen there. Okay. Just ensure that the building is secure. That's a huge thing. Make sure that the doors are locked. I used to do a sweep. I used to teach early morning, our release time seminary at one of our meeting houses. First thing I would do in the morning is I'd walk the building. I'd come in. lock the door behind me, and I would turn on lights, and I'd go check the other entrance doors, and I would just check in the building and just make sure that the building is clear and secure. And then I'd come back and I'd get ready for my thing. Okay, that's not a bad idea to do. Sometimes it cleared my head anyway. I'm thinking about my lesson, and I'm just kind of walking through the building. So that's just some stuff here under this building security guide, right? Just if somebody comes in or a person's behavior becomes disorderly or unacceptable, calmly invite him or her to stop the behavior and leave the property. If they refuse, that's when you separate, call law enforcement, do not engage in physical action. You let police do that. And then obviously, communicate, right? Just in case you're ever in a situation where something goes down and media is involved, okay, you are not a spokesperson. The church building is not public property. You do not have to. You do not have to give media access to things. You don't have to be our spokesperson, right? So you defer media questions to civil authorities at the scene. Remember that saying, "I don't know," may be your best answer, and is least likely to be misquoted, right? Coordinate with S&I people. To be honest with you, coordinate with your stake supervisor if ever a situation like this happens, right? You're going to defer all questions to media relations and so on and so forth. And the person in charge of media relations in your stake is your stake president. So don't take the place of him if ever something like that happens, right? Sometimes our church buildings are to be used during emergencies and disasters. Again, that falls with key holders. That's not necessarily something that you and I are going to make decisions on, okay? Incident reporting. Okay, except for in cases of abuse, there is a reporting, an incident reporting system. Um, you may not need to be the one to do any of this. You need to report to those who do these incidents. So if there's an incident that takes place, if a student gets injured in your class, or if something goes down, you make sure you communicate with your stake supervisor, with me, and we'll make sure that gets to the right person because an incident report probably needs to be had. We actually file those, and that's for liability reasons. So if something goes down, please communicate and let us know so that we can make sure that we do what we need to do on the other side. Okay. Except in cases of abuse. We do not do a global incident report or a GIR if there's an abuse situation. Abuse is not tolerated. We take all reports of abuse super seriously. Just understand in advance of a possible abuse situation, you just need to be familiar with certain things, right? Um, if abuse is disclosed or you suspect, right? Be familiar with, carefully follow local laws regarding responsibilities of reporting. You are actually a mandatory reporter, okay? In virtually every case, child abuse will need to be reported to law enforcement, right? You participate in, this is one of those things where we're talking about, we're doing this training to help you understand. Um, um, the concern for the victim is the top priority when it comes to suspected or disclosed abuse. Okay. If abuse is disclosed or suspected, if you believe a child may have been abused or is at risk of being abused, there is a church abuse helpline or area legal counsel. Now, in your situation, you may be reaching out to your stake presidency, and they may actually make that phone call for you, but they're probably going to want to talk to you. Okay. And just to get the information that needs to happen. But you need to do it as soon as possible because we want to get direction on how to assist the victim and help protect them from further harm, and then make sure that we are complying with all legal reporting requirements. Okay, there's twofold why we're doing that. When a student discloses abuse, the teacher should explain that you are required to report. So when somebody comes up and like you can kind of tell, hey, brother so and so, sister so and so, I really need to talk to you. It is not inappropriate to say, "Hey, I'd love to talk to you. I'm glad that we have this relationship that you want to get some advice from me." Just understand that there are certain things that if you tell me, I have to take the next step. What can I help you with? You just got to give them that. And if they're like, oh, okay, never mind. Like if they say that, then there's bigger fish to fry because then it's like, all right, I think I'm going to reach out to Bishop and I need to have that conversation with Bishop or talk to stake supervisor. Let that go up because that's not the end of your responsibility, right? Teachers should never try to assume the role of a bishop or a branch president or a stake president, right? Teachers should always assume the student is being truthful, call the church abuse helpline or legal counsel as soon as below, as noted as soon as possible, right? And there's the information. It's right here into this guide. Active shooter or assailant. Man, this Michigan situation was terrible. I hate talking about it. I don't even like saying this is the world we live in. Um, we are much more likely to have other incidents than this type of incident, but because this has happened, we got to talk about it. Okay. You should be ready to respond quickly to an active shooter or an assailant incident. I hate saying that. It almost makes me emotional, right? Um, an active shooter or an assailant is an individual actively engaged in harming, killing, or attempting to kill people inside an occupied structure or outside in a populated area. In most cases, there is no pattern or method to their selection of victims. That Michigan incident, I don't know if you spent any time looking at it. I don't know if there was a lot of pre-planning. I don't know if there could have been steps taken for this ward or this unit to have protected themselves against what this guy did. Um, he was going to do harm one way or the other, and so this is more how do we respond if there's just somebody who's kind of bent on causing this kind of havoc. Some things that you and I can think about prior to this situation: identify evacuation routes. You need to have a conversation with your team teacher if you have one, or you just need to identify yourself. If something were to happen, how are we getting out? What is our nearest exit? And if that exit's blocked, what's our next nearest exit? You may want to communicate and coordinate with if you're in a building with multiple classes, where are you going to go once you get out of the building? Okay, that needs to be one of those conversations that you have, right? If a facility, okay, that's not one we need to worry about. There is a video here that's attached. It's called Run, Hide, Fight. It's actually an FBI provided training on how to survive an active shooter event. Um, I'm going to invite you to watch it. It's disconcerting. It's not supposed to make you feel good. It doesn't make you feel good, but it does give you some principles of how to react if you are caught in that situation. And I want you as a teacher to understand you have a role to play, right? The video, spoiler alert, your job in a situation like this is to run first. If you cannot run, then you hide. If you cannot run and you cannot hide, then you must fight. That is the gist of the video. Again, it makes me emotional even thinking about any of our youth having to go through something like this, right? During the incident, you need to help everybody remain calm. Um, Silence your electronic devices. All right. If law enforcement has not arrived on the scene, you need to contact them as soon as it's safe to do so. If you're in the middle of hiding, that may not be the right time to do that. If there's an exchange of gunfire, immediately lie down on the ground and you wait for the law enforcement to instruct you to move, right? Ensure that all students are accounted for. This is one of the reasons I used to talk about this way, and it felt kind of passive aggressive, so I haven't really. But in light of this current situation, this is one of the reasons why daily attendance is so necessary. And if you have your students sign in, if there's an active shooter situation, you may want to grab your sign-in sheet as you leave the building so that you know exactly who's there today. And you can say, all right, I know that so-and-so hasn't marked in, and okay, good. They're not here today. So that just helps you in that emergency situation, right? Um, if an intruder threatens to use a weapon, you comply with their demands. Do not provoke or be defiant or confrontational. It is not prudent to attempt negotiations. If cash is demanded, give it without hesitation. Okay. As indicated below, be prepared to implement, run, hide, fight. And it actually gives you some of those principles written out. I'd encourage you to watch that video. It's going to be in the link here to the document that I am sharing in the description of this video. I'm going to just go through some of these quickly. There is a bomb threat protocol. That's not necessarily going to be our issue because it's not like we have a phone number for anybody to call into. But there's some information here that you can be aware of. Building evacuation. This may be something to just slow down on. It may be necessary. There may be something that happens in the building. Smell of gas. Maybe there's an issue with storm and it's just something happens to the building, or if there is an incident that's larger, like a shooting or a person who's in the building, right? It says coordinate evacuation plan with the local school. That's not our situation. That's if it was a release time. But pre-plan evacuation routes and assembly locations, that is important. Okay. For most of us in a regular church building, it really is just the nearest exit. But you need to also have a place to assemble so that you can actually gather with the other teachers, right? Take roll every day. So that's one of those things, right, that we just need to understand. Keep students quiet and orderly. We're not going to get weird and do fire drills. We're not going to do, we can do an evacuation drill, but only if your stake supervisor says so. Please don't do this on your own to do an evacuation drill. We're not going to go through the process of scaring students and parents unless the stake is making that decision. Okay. So understand, if any of these, you're starting to have these thoughts about, oh, okay, how do I want to plan? Yes, some of this is for you to do on your own, but some of this, if you start making decisions for your class, you need to make sure you're communicating with your stake supervisor. Okay. This one's important because this happens. It's happened quite a bit in certain buildings up and down the West. Okay. If you show up to your building to teach seminary, early morning seminary, and a window or a door's broken in, right? If there's something that's happening there. Okay. Number one, take precautions needed to ensure your safety and the safety of others. Don't put yourself in a life-threatening situation. Contact law enforcement personnel. And then protect and preserve the crime scene. So if a door is broken in, do not go in the building, right? If a window's broken in, do not go into the building. The first thing you need to do is call the police and then make sure nobody else goes in the building. Okay. Let the police go in first. They need to clear it first before anything else happens. So first call, law enforcement. Second call, stake supervisor and stake presidency member if you can't get a hold of them. Just so that those who are there, those who need to know, that they know sooner rather than later. And your role, do not go in the building. Okay. Vandalism's kind of a similar thing. You're going to call the police. You're going to notify who needs to be notified. And then those who are in charge, if it's stake supervisor or stake presidency, they're going to do the incident report and they may ask you to give them some details of things that are happening. Okay. Hope that's crystal clear. Civil disturbances. I'm not sure if that's going to be a risk that we need, but there's a section here if you would like to review some of that safety procedure. Earthquakes. Okay. Inside the building, take shelter under desks, tables, doorways. We kind of know the drill here. Stay away from windows, outside walls, power lines. Evacuate the building when the shaking stops. Calmly evacuate students and others to a pre-designated area. Again, we just need to know the quickest way out and where we're going to assemble. Keep them in a safe location. You don't know where the utilities are to be shut off, so that's not going to be something you need to worry about. That's a phone call to be had to church leaders so that they can do that. Don't re-enter the building, okay? Unless we're given permission to do so, okay? Emotional emergencies. This may be a little bit more common. If as it just this is almost a natural result of being teachers of youth and growing that relationship that they start to trust us. Okay, ensure that you have access to emergency telephone numbers, right? Um, if there is an emotional emergency, so we're talking suicidal attempts or threats, reporting of a rape, drug abuse, so on, right? Listen carefully, be reassuring, and assess needs. If there's a need for first aid, there are first aid kits in buildings. You may need to locate where those are in your building. Um, take notes as stuff is happening. If the situation is life threatening, obviously you're calling emergency personnel, right? If there was a fight in the building or whatever, you're going to contact the parent and the guardian, right? Record the information so that an incident report can be had, right? This is just one of those things. It happens occasionally when you get teenagers, they leave a note in the bathroom, and that's when you actually call the legal helpline and say, hey, we found this note, and they give you direction and steps on how to approach if they want you to investigate anything. But again, that's not necessarily going to fall on you. You're going to report all this to stake supervisor, stake presidency, and there's going to be decisions that are had. Okay. Fires, fire extinguishers in the building are constantly inspected and tested and whatnot. Information there if you want to. Again, evacuations are probably the most important thing. Floods, hazardous material. All of these have their own things. There's not going to be a mail threat. That's not anything you need to worry about. Medical emergencies. First aid training. This is interesting. Again, if this is a concern, you may bring this up to your stake and say, "What about this?" They probably have a stake emergency preparedness plan where some of this can be addressed, right? Um, special needs and disabilities. Okay, individuals with special needs and disabilities are students with behavioral disorders or physical or intellectual challenges who need special attention and help in emergency situations. You need to make sure you know who they are. Keep a roster of these, right? And be prepared to assist those with special needs in an emergency, right? You need to be able to obtain and have available needed information about individuals with special needs or disabilities. Be aware of specific medical information. You just need to know stuff about if you have any youth in your class that have some of those things. That may be something together again with the stake that you go and get some information so that if there's ever an emergency, you know how to address their needs, right? We got a during incident and after incident situation where you can kind of walk through how to prepare for that. Okay, we don't need to talk about volcanoes, but all right. Listen, this is one of those situations where I'd love to think we don't ever have to face these types of situations, but um, it's important that we prepare, and if we are prepared, we shall not fear. Right? I know this wasn't training on how to be a better teacher, but maybe just as important, this is training on how to be an effective leader in case of emergency. And they're going to need you in that as much as they will need your wisdom and your knowledge and your testimony in the daily spiritual aspects of seminary. Okay. If you have any questions or concerns about anything that we talked about, reference the guide, get clarification from the guide. But reach out to me if you want to kind of talk through any of this. I'm down. If any of this makes you nervous, again, reach out. I'd love to just kind of work it through with you. And if you want further clarification, I can help get that from your stake to just make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay. So with that, continue doing the great work that you are doing, shepherding these youth and giving them opportunities to connect with Christ and understand their divine role and their divine destiny as children of a loving Heavenly Father. That is our focus. And some of this other stuff, yay, it may feel like a distraction. it's a necessary distraction for you and I, but it's all part of caring for the needs of these youth. Okay. I love you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Reach out if you need me. I'm always available to sub. I'm always available to demo teach. I'm always available to just talk if you need to just talk through some ideas. And if you have questions or concerns. Okay. All right. I love you guys. I'll see you in a month or so.